Hello everyone, bonjour and welcome to this panel discussion on women and the representation of women in the age of AI. I'm Ria Hebden, I'm a television broadcast journalist and I'm the founder of Wonder Women, and it's my absolute pleasure to host this panel. We've got an esteemed panel of experts and creatives here, so let's jump in and introduce them. So first off we have Rémi Tereszkiewicz, who is a physicist, economist and CSO at Beta Series. And after working in senior roles at leading companies such as Warner Brothers and Lagardère Studio, which is now Media One, where he uses AI and audience data to help the industry develop a sharper understanding of what viewers actually want. Welcome, Rémi.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Nadine Marsh-Edwards, who is an Emmy-nominated BAFTA and RTS award-winning film and television producer. She's also the co-founder of Greenacre Films, which is a female-led production company. Her film credits include Been So Long, Bargy on the Beach, and Young Soul Rebels. She's also a trustee of the film and TV charity in the UK and a mentor on the prestigious Wonder Women mentoring programme. Welcome, Nadine. Next, we have Elizabeth Lehotte, who is the CEO of Adami, which is a collective management organisation for performers. She's worked for women and children's rights and for the dissemination of culture as the Minister of Culture. And she's an expert in innovation, responsible for the digital transformation of the French cultural and creative industries. And she's also written a report on AI for the Ministry of Culture. Welcome, Elizabeth. And finally, we have Caroline Hollick, who's a freelance consultant and former head of drama at Channel 4. Most recently, Caroline served as the SVP of International Development and Production at Peter Chernin's North Road Company. Caroline's developed scripted projects for both the UK and international markets and was an executive producer on upcoming medical thriller Heart of a Killer. Previously, as the head of the drama at Channel 4, Caroline oversaw a series of critically acclaimed and BAFTA award-winning shows such as It's a Sin, I Am Ruth, and The Couple Next Door. And prior to that, she was a creative director at the production company Red. Welcome, Caroline. So in this session, we're going to be discussing microdramas because they're clearly disrupting the market. But what we're going to explore today is, are they devaluing the quality of storytelling and damaging the representation of women and minorities in the same stroke? So Rémi, I'd love to come to you first because you compiled a study on the top 10 microdramas and you compared them to the most watched shows on TV in the last quarter to dissect the representation of women specifically to see how they're presented. And what did you find?
Well, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be part of this panel and to tackle this extremely important issue. So you had already the results, but let me comment. So we did a study in Beta Series. Beta Series, just to make it short, is a community of 3 million people, a bit more, to which we deliver TV series recommendation for 15 years. So we have millions of insights about usage and what kind of content for which target and so on. And for 3 years, we are developing intensively AI analytics, also applied on content, so that we don't have only 28 genre categories, but more than 40,000 themes and topics in which we have all the material to assess, of course, pitching, issues, but also ethical themes, meaningful elements in the contents, so that we can deploy surveys and help, hopefully, the industry to go in the right directions. So one of these surveys has been developed together with in a program called Apraxi, together with CNRS, which is the French National Research Institute, and the chair of philosophy of La Sorbonne. And we asked to these experts to define DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion. We have developed 150 parameters to assess this problematic in a content that then we watch with our systems with VLM, so multimodal systems assessing dialogue and videos, and to extract out of this all these elements that help us to define the DEI elements in it. Out of the 150, we have taken exclusively for this panel what is really representing women. So 20 criteria. I got a couple of examples. It could be equality of narrative agency in redemption arcs, in access to leisure activities, to technological skills, balance in romantic relationships, access to heroic and antagonist roles, parental power, and so on. So all of these elements are really important to define this female representation in a content. It could be applied to TV series, but also to other formats. And this is the point of this study. We applied that on the most watched shows that we measure on beta series for the last quarter. So we took 24 shows, mostly American shows, because on the platforms you have these American shows. You have Dexter, you have American platforms, but non-US like Squid Game, or you have French shows like Les Sentinelles or Nero or Les Disparus de la Gare from broadcasters, from platforms. You have also Empathy, which is Canadian. So all these shows, we analyzed them with these criteria, and we compared that to the 10 sample of the 10 most watched microdramas on YouTube. This is representative also of what is proposed on dedicated platforms to microdramas. So it's quite a good representative sample. I give you a couple of titles because I am less familiar with these titles, but it could be titles like Our Secret Language, A Mardol, The Golden-Eyed Heiress, Love Triangle. Some of them are quite, you understand, already the subject of this panel. One is One Night with the CEO. The last, it's your favorite, right? I think you like also She Is His Servant, no? Okay, so no jokes, but effectively, we applied this measure, and when we compare both, so first of all, the point is not to have 100%, because some criteria could be totally absent, like women representation in historical context. Many of the shows are not historical, are not period dramas, but you must have the best score. So the most watched shows have 55, so there is room for progress, of course, but it's 43.7, so it's 20% less on the microdramas, and if we remove the two of them having good ratings, then it's 38, so it's 30% less. So really it's a lot less, and I think it's representative of the subject of this topic. If I take the 4 biggest differences, it's consent scenes, so scenes that explicitly explain what is consentment, where you have a dialogue and where you take into account the other people's advice, position, yeah, sorry. We have a more classical one, shared domestic tasks. We have a balanced power roles and female dialogues beyond men, so not speaking about men, you know. And of course, the one that I take as an example here is about consent. It's only 2.3 for our usual shows, so which is not a good rating, not at all. So, but it's not the subject necessarily here, but in a way, let's discuss also about that. And it's 0 for the microdramas. It is just non-existing. So it is not in the way. I mean, it's just not there. And I think it's a good kickoff for this discussion to have these couple of elements. Of course, we have a lot more, and we can share after. But this is the start.
Thank you, Rémi. You explained that beautifully. Caroline, during your tenure as head of drama at Channel 4 in the UK, you were very active in commissioning dramas made by women as part of an industry commitment to ensuring 50-50 representation. What are your thoughts on the quality of the storytelling that we're seeing coming through?
Well, there are always amazing female creators out there, and I think there's some brilliant shows. At the moment, I'm a particular fan of Vladimir on Netflix, which is a very nuanced portrayal of a complex older woman. I very much enjoyed All Her Fault on Peacock, which again, I think very entertaining show, but really thought about how it was representing women. I don't feel like the same rigor is applied to all dramas across the board now. I think a lot of that is because in a risk-averse environment, a lot of commissioners have been reverting back to tried and tested writers, and because so many women and people of colour have been shut out of the TV industry, as we all know, those tried and tested writers are often white, middle-class, middle-aged men. Some of my best friends are white, middle-class, middle-aged men. But the fact is that, again, there isn't always somebody in the room who is ensuring that the quality of the representation is as high as it could be. I'll give you an example of a very successful British show that was out last year, international thriller, huge IP, male lead, female lead. The male lead ran around Europe shooting people, had a hot wife in Spain, like living his best life. The female lead, who was chasing him, went back home to her husband, who would tap his watch and say, "What time do you call this?" Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing. But if you dig deep into the female representation in that show, we should be doing better than that. And although the microdramas, clearly there's an issue, I kind of see this as like a early format, right? Like slasher horror in the 80s. That was not the most progressive of genres. It's women running around in negligees covered in blood. You know that the black character's going to die in the first 5 minutes. And then you evolve to The Babadook, Get Out, Sinners. Someone did point out to me that took 40 years, so maybe it's not the flex I think it is. But I do think that people are going to, and people already are making microdramas which are much more representative. I'm much more concerned at the moment about high-end TV in Hollywood taking steps backwards, not only in taking down all of their DEI initiatives, but in the quality of the representation that we're seeing. I want to make one more point about cinema, which there are some incredible feminist film directors out there, right? We all know their names. We saw them well represented at the Oscars. But I have a concern that the gatekeepers who are providing the funding for these films are prioritizing films that don't challenge representations of women. I went to the film festival in Leeds in the autumn, and I saw 4 or 5 films about women having massive nervous breakdowns, right? And I think it's not that these films aren't beautifully made, it's not that they're not beautifully performed, but we have to be really vigilant in the stories we're telling about women. And are we moving back to a stage where the hysteria of women that was so prevalent, you know, the story about women being hysterical in the 18th century is kind of coming back into the present day? And I think it's on the gatekeepers to be really vigilant to ensure that we have a huge breadth of movies. I want to see a female-led version of The Secret Agent, right? I love that movie. I think Joachim Trier's done it beautifully with Sentimental Value, but unless we stay vigilant, unless we make a huge effort to put our foot on the scales and ensure that kind of a 50-50% proportion of female creators and male creators, then those cultural stereotypes can get perpetuated at every level.
Thank you. Elizabeth, as I said, you're the MD of ADAMI, the collective that protects over 100,000 performers' rights in France and around the world. What are your concerns here?
The microdrama industry is a low-cost industry, high-volume production model, driven by extremely short development cycles. Scripts are often mass-produced and then translated into multiple languages using AI. A single simplistic storyline is replicated and adapted dozens of times, creating a standardized and repetitive narrative ecosystem. In some cases, AI is also used to develop scripts. These narratives rely heavily on negative stereotypes about women, who are frequently portrayed as materialistic or manipulative. Therefore, we must be concerned about the working conditions of creators, and in particularly actors and actresses. Will there be enough time to rehearse, to deliver a proper performance? We must also address the representation being disseminated. Due to their simplicity and reliance on AI, microdramas industrialize and amplify gender stereotypes on a massive scale. AI models themselves are trained on decades of biased representation of women. As a result, they do not challenge these biases. They scale them, endlessly recycling the stereotypes of the past.
I mean, some of the titles that you were referring to, Rémi, they just sound like a dodgy porn movie, don't they? I mean, they do. No disrespect if you made that, by the way. Nadine, I'd love to come to you. Are we witnessing the slow erasure of the progress that's been made on screen in terms of representation over the last 50 years? And what can we do about it?
Sadly, I think we are. I think there's 2 points for me to really think about. There's mainstream broadcast, and then there's the new microdramas that are coming over. I mean, I set up in a collective 30 years ago with other young black filmmakers, and we primarily set up because we wanted to make programs that showed us, our mates, our families, our friends, because at the time, it's kind of probably hard to imagine, the only time we saw black or brown people on TV, we would scream, because it's like, there's one, and we would count them, and the women would normally be prostitutes, maids, helpers. They didn't have good jobs, they weren't in positions of power, and the men were normally criminals. I can't add any more to that because at the time they were criminals, and we don't know people like that, so we want to show something different, and we worked really hard along with lots of other people. And so when it got to the stage of, say, 4 or 5 years ago, when you could have a black female CEO on screen, you could have a scientist, you could have the full breadth of what we know women do on screen, you kind of thought, we've done it. We've done it. We don't have to make this argument anymore. And then along come the microdramas, which I know I'm not a target audience, but I've done a deep dive into watching them. And I have to say, I'm so shocked. I'm genuinely shocked at the portrayal of women and men, actually, in these programs. I mean, the titles that you mentioned, they are soft porn titles, and I understand because the model that's used for people to make money is clickbait. It's like, there's this sexy title, come and watch a few episodes free, then you start paying your money, and then you're hooked for another 70 episodes. So I understand where that's coming from. But I'm just thinking there must be ways to make interventions so that the stories we're telling are more than, can I give myself to this gangster for $100,000 to pay my dad's medical bills? Okay, that's a valid argument, but there's got to be other ways to do it. Maybe she could get a job. Maybe she could do the lottery. You know, there are options to this. And for me, you know, I've got 2 daughters, and I've watched them over the years go from watching the TV with us in the room to watching it on their laptop to watching it on their phone and the TV and the laptop and listening to music all at the same time. But the conversations we are having in our household about how they are represented as young women is quite startling. And I worry that what they're seeing is reinforcing something that is very much in the air at the moment of some men trying to reclaim a power back centuries ago, and there are young women who are kind of going along with it. So I feel that we have to be very vigilant about what is going on as program makers. But there's another side of me that sees them as an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, there's an opportunity with these microdramas because they're made much cheaper. You know, you can do lots of different stories in a shorter amount of time. And so that's more opportunities for new creative talent. But then the other side of me says, but what are they getting paid?
Yeah.
You know, how do they benefit from the millions of pounds that are being made by some of these? Does any of this go back to the actual creatives, or they just become part of a factory? So I think there are pluses and minuses. At the moment, I'm seeing more minuses, but I'm optimistic and hopeful that if people like all of us in this room start to ask the questions of the people, the platforms and the people who are making them, that they will start upping their game and offering us some more choices.
And is it about, you know, disrupting it by making better quality ones?
I absolutely agree, and I think when people work out how to effectively monetize short-form drama without having to make it make 15 of them, in a back lot with actors who can't really act. Then I think you're going to see an exponential growth in quality. And there's already some amazing stuff out there. There's an incredible sci-fi series called 1,000 Suns, which is individual anthology, very, very clever little films, and actually a brilliant use of AI to create backdrops that make these little dramas look like they've cost a lot more than they did. And I think that's clearly giving somebody an opportunity and a springboard to hopefully move into cinema. I think there are some really interesting black creatives making short-form drama. I think microdrama is kind of the problem because it has to be so melodramatic if you're working in 3-minute chunks. If you take, I don't know, Issa Rae's Awkward Black Girl, that was her springboard to making Insecure, many series of that, and was a showcase for a brilliant talent who didn't have to go through all of the gatekeepers to get her voice out there. There's a black filmmaker called Ezekiel the First. He's come out of kind of social media, but he's making really, really quality short films that are hugely popular for a younger audience who aren't coming to the broadcasters. So I'm hoping that this could be a really great place for talent, but I think it's the 3-minute episodes are really challenging.
Rémi, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that we should be, of course, it's difficult to be very optimistic, but we have to assess this situation. It's there. The problem is not microdrama or AI. It's just we have to take them into account, and that's it. It's a format. Most of all, it's a usage. People have got more mobiles. People have got less attention, less time. We know that. So now people need to have these short formats, and when they travel on their mobile and so on. So for each format, it depends how you populate it with your talents. And initially, horror movies were really not that good, and now Cronenberg is climbing the stairs of Festival de Cannes. So I think that it's up also to the creative community to say we should do something because there is a usage, there is a demand, people like that, and let's take it with us and elevate a bit. It's a role of the culture is to elevate people, using this. I'm back from Japan, where we are in Beta Series, a sponsor of the partner of the AI festival. So purely AI, a production. So very frightening. But in fact, the prices that have been given by a very, very expert team of juries from the Ghibli studios and so on. So very, very established creators. Without knowing the creator behind, they gave the 2 biggest prize to short formats, almost a microdrama, in anime style, so fully AI, with the main character complaining that all her life has been so difficult because she or he is not a man or a woman, it's an ungendered person. And the show is called It's Me. It's about identity. It was so emotional. And everything is done in AI, everything is micro, and at the end, it's a true person that came on stage having suffered so much about this situation and explaining with these new tools and these new formats, and it worked. It was pure emotion, it was pure creation.
It's lovely. We will all be Googling that after this. Elizabeth, you asked some of the female actors on your board if they would feel good about working on a microdrama if the conditions were good, but the role itself set women back. What did you find?
One of them is in the audience today, so I will be very careful about what I say. What they told me is that, as you said, the format is rapidly expanding, and these actresses are not opposed to new job opportunities. However, they remain really attentive to the working conditions involved. Will they really get paid? Will they have time to do their job? They are also concerned about the stereotypes conveyed by microdramas. We watched a series together with them and we were like all shocked. Some of them would simply refuse to take on roles that are so caricatural, while others are calling for a significant improvement in the quality of the scripts. And that shift to me will likely become inevitable. The storylines are currently so repetitive that audiences will eventually grow tired of them. To retain and expand their viewership, this production will have no choice but to develop richer, more nuanced scripts. So I'm also optimistic, but rather for economic reasons.
You worked with the government to represent the rights of women and children in France, and you had academic input put into the impact of how microdramas will shape young people's perceptions of friendships and relationships. What do you think the greater danger to society is here and its wider impact on the portrayal of women and minorities if the microdramas continue to go unpoliced?
Well, we also conducted a study with ADAMI, because ADAMI role is to collect and to distribute money. To do this, we have comprehensive data about performers, including their age. We conducted a full analysis of all films and series broadcast on the French television in 2024. And the findings are unequivocal and unacceptable. Women remain significantly underrepresented in fiction, despite making up more than half of the population. In 2024, only 4 out of 10 roles were given to women. In feature films, women accounted for 37% of leading roles, and their presence declines sharply from the age of 40 onwards. There are a clear breaking point at midlife for them, but not for men. What a French viewer sees on the French television is a majority of men over 40 and a majority of women under 40. So I'm really concerned about representation. I also have a daughter, and I would really like that she can see women with interesting roles in different formats and in microdramas as well, because the way the human brain develops shows that it's really difficult to catch emotion and normal human relationships if what you see is simplistic story generated by AI. It's a real question of civilization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do you want to add to that, Rémi?
Well, about AI, because it's microdrama, and we speak also about AI. We see AI as a tool. All of us, we need to see that as a tool to empower creators and not to replace creators. That is a challenge, and I think there are good points to take it this way, because we know many creators that we accompany in beta series using it in a very constructful manner. So it can help, of course, but we have to take into account the fact that these LLMs, they are educated themselves by a lot of information, stereotypes, as you say, that humans give them. If we take the example of out of this, just if you type in a shark, on an LLM to visualize you a shark, it will be Joe, an horrible fish that wants to eat you. But if you ask for tuna, it won't be a fish. It will be a box that you have to
like a tin of
put
tuna.
to put your salad niçoise.
Ah.
So this is tuna fish. So this is a representation. It's not neutral. So we use, if we are assisted, let's hope it is for the best. Of course, is to be empowered, as we say. But let's not take it as a grant. That this information, should be the one neutral to take into account to build stories. So it's up also to creators to inject their own values, their own themes, and not to rely only on the AI to give you all the architecture and you just have to put the flesh around that.
Let's talk a little bit now about the governance and safeguarding. Nadine and Caroline, where do you think the responsibility of governance lies?
Well, yeah. I think first and foremost it lies with us, with what we're making, and we need to call out people when they're making things that we think are inappropriate. But I just actually want to give a shout out to a couple of shows that I watched that I thought were actually quite good. And one is Pride and Prejudice, which is made out of the UK, and it's about Pride and Prejudice, but it's kind of done in quite an ironic, knowing way, and I haven't watched all of it, but the episodes I've seen I thought were pretty good and they were quite fun. And the other one is The Heiress, The Baller and The Secret Society, which is on the Mensa platform. There's like, I think 27 episodes of that. And in that one, the reason I liked it is because she becomes a heroine, she becomes quite independent, and it's more from a female point of view. And there are people of colour that are centre stage, and I'd hardly seen any of this at all. And also I think the big difference in it was that I actually recognised some of the actors, so the quality of the storytelling and the drama that I watched was of a much higher standard than most of the other ones. So both of those together kind of gave me the hope that I mentioned earlier, that you can make short form drama that's 2 or 1 to 3 minutes long. It can still have those hooks, those cliffhangers, and be a bit melodramatic, but it can also be about something, and it can have representation that we can question. We don't have to agree with everything that we see in every single program, but I think as long as we're given that bit of breathing space where we can make our own decisions and we aren't just kind of having things thrown at us every 10 seconds. So in the end, some of the ones I watched, I actually didn't know what the show was I was watching. They all merged into each other, and unfortunately so did most of the young women who were in them. They physically merged into each other as well. So I worry that we're kind of losing that sense of being an individual that's part of a bigger story. So I think we have to really kind of check what we're doing and the sort of stories that we're asking for, because we have to ask for them. If we don't watch certain ones, they won't get made again. We won't get the same story told in 25 languages. And so we have to start coming up with storylines that are a bit broader than that. I also think that, nationally, for TV stations in the UK, we have Ofcom. If something goes out that's dodgy, they get called out on it. Okay, you have to write in and complain. But sometimes thousands and thousands of people write in and complain about, portrayal of certain people. So is that ever going to happen online? Are we going to have people checking what's actually been put out there that anyone of any age can watch? And I know there's a big push about pornography and gambling and blah, all of that, but the images that young people see help form who they are going forward. So I think we need to have checks and balances put in place for them too.
Thank you.
And I think any conversation about AI in the end comes down to the total lack of governance and the total lack of guardrails. And I try not to be hysterical about AI, even though I think that AI robots are going to kill us all in our beds really soon. I understand that it's a tool, but I think having very strict rules about when things are generated by AI, making that clear. On television, if you have product placement, you have to put PP in the corner of your screen in the UK, so that people don't feel like you're sneaking advertising in. Until governments globally regulate AI, I think there are going to be so many complexities facing young people, whether it's misinformation. So I think that becomes a really important part of the discussion, because we should learn from what happened with social media, right? Which was completely ungoverned, and we've ended up in a place that's pretty dark. And I'm very interested to see the outcome of this case against Meta that's been brought in the US, because it's clearly been damaging.
Now, we must show balance and discuss the positives and opportunities here, because as with all new innovations, there are risks, but there are also creative and commercial opportunities that come with that. What do we need to do? Is it about collaborating more to create new business models that support new writers, directors? that incorporate all those values that we care about, which are D&I, you know, and ultimately we get better quality content? What are your thoughts?
I mean, young people clearly want to watch short form, right? This is what the popularity of the microdramas is telling us. It doesn't mean that they won't then watch, I don't know, heated rivalry or really interesting Japanese thrillers. Like, it's not that everyone's only focused on one thing, but they like to watch stuff on their phones. We have to learn from that and, you know, stop making remakes of Jane Austen that they're not necessarily going to kind of lean into, right? So I think it is on producers and it's on broadcasters to find really interesting ways of delivering audiences what they want in terms of short form. There are some very interesting brand relationships to be made. I think there are a lot of companies who would be very happy to fund things in interesting ways. And it's about kind of targeting the right talent to deliver interesting stories in the format that young people want to watch it. And it's on us in part of legacy media to kind of run and catch up a bit.
Love that. Elizabeth, tell us about the positive action that you made recently at London Connect, where you supported 9 actresses aged over 50, which led to one of them securing work with Amazon.
Yes. The starting point of this was really simple. We observed that even very well-known French actresses are not being offered roles in series of fiction in France when they get 50 or over. So we offered them to go to the London content market to have speed meetings with international directors because we thought maybe they will, you know, have fresh eyes and enthusiasm about them. And it worked, as you said. One of them will maybe sign with an international platform. And all of them told us it was really positive to discuss between them what they live, and also to go outside our boundaries and to find a professional with imagination for them. So yes, that was really positive, and we will try to amplify them with the colleagues from Unifrance who are in the audience. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And just finally, Rémi, I'd love it if you could just tell us a little bit more about the database that you're using on AI, which will help producers strategically position their content in Europe based on those themes that you were talking about at the very beginning.
Well, to come to the point of being optimistic,
yes,
I guess that we use a lot of our data to first to be sure that there is a demand, and there is a demand for more elevating shows, for curiosity. We have less than 18% of the people that we measure just in front of their screens to be entertained. Most of them want to be elevated, they have curiosity. Thanks to the platforms, they are aware that it's not only the subject of their countries, but of some others, of some other formats, some other generations that they want to discover and share. So there is a good demand, and we, thanks to the data, we can segment it because the world is super segmented now. But there are so many ways now to address these audiences. It's not only with a thriller, but there are so many combinations. So, so good confidence on that. I think that on AI, and it's not us building this AI suite of tools, but creators can really go to the kind of production they want. It's decreasing every month now, the price you need to do science fiction, for instance. So in France, where we are, I mean, most of the time when we bring a science fiction show, we're told that, you know, it's too expensive, it's not for you. US does better science fiction, you know, shows than French. More money, more. Now it's possible, I would say, a lot more. So I think creators have more possibilities to open, you know, their creativity and freedom to do what they want and to be good at it. And I think also, speaking about how to use data, we can change some business models. You have these micropayments that are used in the microdramas. But you have also probably new ways to invent with advertisers. You speak about values, brand relations. For instance, a brand, now it's possible to understand with the same tools what kind of themes and topics a brand is interested in. And then you can produce also microdramas or other shows having the themes and topics reflecting brand, engagements and branding strategies. And that can be a new way to involve advertisers without having the standard pack shot and advertising, but also committing them, engaging them into creation in a different manner. So there are many, many ways to use the data to hopefully, make out of this industry a better one.
So it's an opportunity, really, if you're a filmmaker and you've been beavering away trying to get meetings with commissioners and you're not getting any joy or any look in there, this actually could be a new entry for you to get your art out there that could, you could collaborate with a brand, get some new actors on board that haven't made their TV or film debut. So it actually could be a really fruitful pipeline for new voices to be heard and to have their work recognised.
Yeah, I think it really can be, and that is why I'm optimistic. But I think we mustn't forget, you don't just wake up one morning and become a great storyteller.
Yeah.
It takes time. People have to learn a trade. So I think that's why if you get some newer talent coming through, maybe working with some more experienced talent and putting those two skills together, we might end up with something that's really quite exciting, really interesting, really stretching the boundaries of what's already been done. So I'm really optimistic about that. I also am wondering where and if there should be any government funding intervention in this, because, we have film funds in the UK. So far, I haven't seen any of that money go towards this type of storytelling. Maybe it's already been organised and I just don't know about it. But I think that could be a really interesting way to get new people coming into the industry, telling different types of stories in different ways, but also being quite aware and more responsible about what those stories are and what the representation is.
I think if you, in the UK, a pipeline into television writing was always soap opera, right? And loads of great Russell T Davies and Paul Abbott and Sally Wainwright all came out of that history. And I think that vertical dramas can become that engine. At the moment, it's still a bit the Wild West, but I think if we can really start, like you say, start to fund it properly, oversee it properly, make sure there are people with expertise supporting people, then hopefully as returning drama and soap becomes a smaller part of the landscape, still a very important one, I really hope vertical dramas will be even more accessible in a way, because you can shoot them with your own technology rather than needing a whole big studio like Emmerdale or Coronation Street might have. So I think potentially it could be really exciting.
And also, always leave room for that outlier to break through, because there's always that talent that you don't see coming that does something really spectacular. So I think as long as there's space for that, I think as long as there's some public funding, as long as we're able to talk to brands, talk to broadcasters, I think we just need to spread it out a bit and not just rely on one source of income or one source of people being able to see your work. We just have to think a bit broader now.
And would you be open to collaborating?
Totally.
Because you were talking about, as experienced storytellers, would you be open to collaborating with newer people in the industry who are really keen to get their work?
Well, in Greenacre we do. Last year we did a scheme for people, because I love action and thriller films, and I hadn't really seen any coming out of the UK, coming from diverse perspective. So we got some money from the BFI and we chose 10 writers, blah, blah, blah. And it was a fantastic thing to do. And there's 2 or 3 great stories that have come out of that hopefully will get funded and get made. So we've always been a company, and most of the people I know, actually, we're always looking for newer talent, and that doesn't always mean young talent. Yeah. That can mean talent that's crossing over from, say, documentary or advertising or photography. It could be anything. If you've got a story you want to tell, you need to find your team, your allies, your gang, who you can make it with, and so that you can support each other through the process.
I love that. Well, prepare to be bombarded afterwards because everybody's going to want to collaborate with you. This has been a fascinating discussion. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Let's hear it for our panel. Thank you. Thank you.